Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is your man, Big B Brien Hanley. Welcome to Steelers Almighty. We got Nick Farabaugh. He's from Steelers beat writer for Penn Live. We got Jason Jacobs here for Mike Drop Sports. We appreciate them joining us. We have got a ton going on today as far as what we're doing with the show. Basically, we're going to do an end of the year show discussing the Steelers season, doing a recap any of Mike Tomlin, maybe some coaching changes. Doesn't seem like there's going to be any. It's not with him, but any of his assistants. We'll discuss that in any future. Also, free agency breakdown and NFL draft preview moving forward. So, and what the season for next year, what that outlook might be. So, we appreciate everybody being in here. Thank you guys for showing up like you always do. First things first, Nick, how are you doing, my man? Thank you for taking the time and joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. Doing well. We're at the Senior Bowl. It's been about 2 weeks since the season ended, so everything's kind of rolling along, going well. Really enjoying it. I really like covering the NFL draft and the process and getting the off season. But of course, the season didn't end like most of y'all wanted it to.
No, it did not. I love the draft process myself. Just digging in, finding out what we need, what the good players are going to be, and really trying to find out exactly where we can draft guys when we're slotted to draft them. I think that's the key to this. Jason, thank you for taking the time, man. How are you doing?
Great, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
No problem. Well, let's get into this, guys. First things first, the overall performance of the Steelers this year. I will go ahead and start with you, Jason. Tell me what you liked, disliked. Did they exceed expectations? Just kind of the short and skinny of it as far as the Steelers season was concerned.
I truly feel like they met my expectations. I kind of figured a 10-7, 11-6 football team. One thing they fell short on a little bit was I thought they'd get a playoff win, but that didn't happen. So that was kind of the tough part. But I feel like they kind of met what I thought this roster would do.
Right. And I was kind of the same way. I was at 11-6. They fell a little short of that because literally the season just fell completely apart at the end. But the 3 games that they lost to the tough competition, I had them losing. I just thought they'd beat the Bengals at the end of the year, and they didn't. But neither here nor there. Nick, I thought they met expectations, but I'm like Jason. I thought they'd win a playoff game. Not to mention, I thought that was the whole reason that we brought Russell Wilson in and made the switch, because he gave us a better opportunity to win a playoff game.
Yeah, I looked preseason. I think it looked like a 9-8, 10-7 team. There was a lot of new. I think that definitely had to be factored in, right?
Yeah.
First few weeks, you're going to have some rough and tumble. Actually didn't end up really happening. It just jumped out to a 3-0 record, which I thought maybe skewed expectations. I thought the way the season went probably is skewed expectations a little bit, right? When they were 10-3, everybody's like, oh, this team's really, really good. But I think overall, I tend to think, 10-7, wild card berth, playoff loss. I mean, I don't think that's meeting expectations. I think that's probably falling below them a little bit. I think with all the changes you made, right, new offensive coordinator, new quarterback, you brought in, these new offensive linemen trying to fix it. I kind of feel like you wanted to come out of this with a playoff win. They did. And so I think they fell short of expectations in that regard. But I do think 10-7 is what they were. I think that's what they were on the docket. I thought that's what they were on the paper, to be quite honest with you, preseason. But I thought, there's different 10-7s. Like 10, not every 10-7 looks like the same 10-7. This 10-7 didn't look the same as last year's 10-7. And so there can be a promising 10-7, or there can be a 10-7 where you're left with these questions. And I think that's kind of where the Steelers are. They're left with all these questions, and they kind of got to answer for it.
Correct. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack with what the Steelers need to get for next year. We'll go through all that, but I was kind of the same way. I thought, I had 11-6. Maybe I'm a little bit more optimistic. I just kind of looked at the schedule and thought there's some games on here that we can win, especially early, that we were going to win. And then as the season unfolded, I had those 3 games. I'm like, yeah, they're not going to beat these guys, man. These teams are just better than us. And a lot of Steeler fans don't like when you say stuff like that, but it's It's just the truth. They were just better than us. I mean, I don't think anybody would tell you. I know we beat Baltimore early, but we usually do. But I don't think there's anybody that would tell you that we were a better football team than the Baltimore Ravens. And even in that game, had they not turned the ball over, the Ravens beat us then. So it's just one of those things that we have to look at. As far as best wins of the season, Nick, let me know what your best win and maybe best loss of the season was.
I think best win pretty easily is I'd say either the Chargers game or the Commanders game. And the reason I'll say those two is I think the Chargers game was probably the most complete the teams looked all year. I thought they dominated a playoff team up front. I thought they dominated the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football. They really hurt that team up front. I thought that was the one game really where I could point to them saying, yeah, they are doing what they wanted to do. They wanted to win up front. They wanted to run the ball. They wanted to, dominate your offensive line. They did all of that in that game. And I thought that one was really good. Just Fields looked good and turned the ball over. I also think the Commanders game, obviously, is kind of looking back on it, a great win for them. Obviously, that's a team that went to the NFC Championship game. I thought that they got out to a really fast start. I think that was one of their few very fast starts of the year. They got out, very quickly. And you look back at that game, and there were a lot of things that went against the Steelers in that game, and they still won. I thought that was a game, whether it was the fake punt that it felt like, was a really good call, but they didn't execute it. They were running the ball at will down their throats, and then Jalen Warren fumbled it at the 2-yard line. There were just things that went against them, and they still won that game. And so that's a really, really good game to me to point to, but obviously kind of fell off the cliff there. Russell Wilson played really well in that game too. I do think kind of their loss that sticks out to me the most as kind of disappointing is this Cowboys game. I think you really look back at that one. You think that's one you should have won. That is, I think, one of the biggest losses of the season, just because I think where the Cowboys were, the Cowboys turned the ball over 3 times in that game. You still lost. So that's really bad. And then, anything in that 5-game losing stretch, I don't care if you want to put, you got dominated up front by the Eagles, got dominated up front by the Ravens. You couldn't communicate properly at all against the Chiefs. And then you kind of just came out to fall flat and didn't execute against Chiefs. And then you get dominated up front again by the Ravens. So whatever you want to point to in that 5-game losing streak, I think is not pretty.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you as far as the best win. I thought it was the Commanders' win because, like you said, we came out fast. The fake punt, if we hit the fake punt, I personally thought the game could turn into a blowout because Washington had absolutely no answers for what Pittsburgh was doing. Literally no answers. But then the Cowboys, look, I live here in Dallas, and I had to hear about that forever. But needless to say, it's like Dallas was awful. And let's make no mistake about it. Dallas was awful. Their offensive line was terrible. Their defensive line was terrible. Their best 2 defensive linemen weren't even playing in that game. DeMarcus Lawrence, and Micah Parsons didn't even play in the game, and yet we couldn't do the things that we wanted to do. I thought that was absolutely horrendous. Jason, let me know your highlights as far as season and lowlights as far as the wins and losses, I should say.
Yeah, I got to agree with both of you guys. I thought that Commanders win actually is probably the win that I felt like meant the most. I felt like it was a gutsy performance. Russ didn't play super great the whole game, but he made the plays that he had to make. He showed guts. I thought it was a real turning point for the team. You're beating a quality opponent. Jaden Daniels is the real deal. I thought he's the best quarterback out of that draft, but just a gutsy performance, no matter how you slice it. You guys touched on all the points that, brought us to that win being a great win. And then I had to agree with Nick, that Dallas loss with you also, Big B. That Dallas loss was just tough. Mike Tomlin puts it all on the defense, and they just stumble there at the end. I just thought that was a tough pill to swallow for them moving forward and maybe hit a little bit in the confidence area.
Yep, absolutely. So as far as any surprise players that maybe overperformed or stepped up per se, Nick, who do you think, hit that bill as far as overperformed, and then maybe somebody who underperformed? The person that I will say as far as underperformed, I thought Larry Ogunjobi. Look, I know he's not a superstar by any means. I'm not saying that. And he really technically hasn't been the same. I mean, I know we signed him but he got hurt in Cincinnati, and he really wasn't the same even coming to the Steelers. But I thought, you know what? Maybe he's trying to play for another contract. Maybe he's going to try to have a pretty big year this year. And then he got hurt again, which you aren't blaming people for injuries or anything, but it just didn't work out for Larry O. That was one person I was really disappointed in. I know it's easy to say the tackles, and maybe I should just say the tackles because let's just be honest, they were bad. But for me, it was those guys. And then, look, McCormick, as far as overperforming, because he wasn't even supposed to play this year. He was a project coming in, and I know his technique is terrible. I absolutely understand that his technique was bad, but the guy fights. I'm not sure how much help he gets from Pat Meyer. I'll be honest with everybody. I don't think Pat Meyer's the greatest offensive line coach. Having said all of that, I think he stepped up in a spot to where, again, this guy jumping up the level. I mean, he was an FCS guy coming up to the National Football League. I mean, it's 2 jumps as far as the speed of the game. And I thought he handled himself well. I thought he hit a rookie wall, but a lot of rookies hit that wall. But I thought he handled himself well.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I look at underperform, I think there's a lot of answers to this. You can go so many different directions. You can go Ogunjobi. You can go Broderick Jones. I think Broderick Jones is a big one. You can go Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think he didn't have the best year of his career. There are 2 names that stick out in terms of overperforming to me. One, you mentioned McCormick. I think that's one, but I think Calvin Austin had a really good year. I thought him emerging as a legit 3-4 type is good for their future there, because this is kind of the Calvin Austin you would wanted to see. He's a deep threat. He's not going to be a high usage guy, but out of the slot, he's a real speed threat that can stretch defenses. He was an issue for teams. Like, they had to legitimately start counting defensive backs to take away Calvin Austin. I thought that was important. I think if they have another receiver in there with them, you'll see Calvin's game really pop even more. His tape was really good all year. Deshaun Elliott, I think, is really the guy I look at. Listen, this guy was signed for 2 years, $6 million, $3 million a year. I mean, and he is absolutely, in my opinion, played at a Pro Bowl level. He is that good this year. He was a dominant run defender, great at racing tight ends. And I thought he was a good player. I didn't really expect that out of him. So I thought Deshaun Elliott was the biggest signing of the offseason for them. And he really, really played at a high level. In terms of disappointments, though, I really do kind of have to come back personally to Broderick Jones. I think that is a significant development for this team. I get it. He's not playing at left tackle. It's not his natural spot. We talk about that all the time, how maybe they should have just played him at left tackle. But here's the thing, man, that the technique has not taken a step in 2 years. He was getting plays wrong. He's pulling at the wrong time. He's just missing guys in space on big runs. I don't feel comfortable with him as one of your starting tackles next year. And listen, they're not going to address that this season. He's going to be one of your starting tackles next year, but I would not feel good about that. It's to the point where, I'm assuming if Justin or Russ is back next year, would you want to put him on the left side? Like, are you really trying to put him back on the left side at this point? I don't know. I think it's tough. And so I think Broderick Jones needs, to figure something out fast. But he had a really, really disappointing year too. The tape was about as bad as you can get. And so, yeah, I think Broderick Jones is the answer there, even though there is a lot of answers you could put onto that one.
Correct.
Yeah, I agree. I with some of the players that I thought overachieved a little bit. Zach Frazier, a guy that I thought just played like a pro. I mean, just a guy coming in as a rookie. Did he make rookie mistakes? Yes, but I thought he was one of those solid pieces that definitely the Steelers could feel comfortable about moving forward. Mason McCormick, also a bright star, I think so. A guy like you guys said wasn't really supposed to play, but there he was playing each and every day. So I thought Peyton Wilson played well also. He was somebody that I really liked. And I have to agree with Nick. Deshaun Elliott, what a stud, man. That was a great find. And as far as people that didn't perform really well, Minkah just is killing me, man. $18 million a year, and I'm not sure, is it a Steelers misuse of him or is it Minkah? I know injuries plagued him last year, but it's really puzzling to me what's been going on with him. So I thought that was a disappointment there, and I have to agree with Nick also on the tackles, Broderick Jones especially. But I'm hopeful Broderick will be able to get it together in 2025.
Yeah, the thing about Broderick to me, and I was saying this all year on the channel, is like Dan Moore was playing good early, and then he just fell off a cliff that I don't think I've ever seen in professional football. Having said all of that, they gave Broderick an opportunity to beat Dan Moore out, and he didn't do it. And that's the whole thing. It's like, okay, we can say just throw him over to left tackle and he's going to be fine. I'm like, if the Steelers thought he was better than Dan Moore, they'd have played him there, and they didn't. I'm like, I mean, maybe they wanted him to play right, and they weren't sure about Troy Faetano. And I get Faetano got hurt, but he wasn't hurt in minicamp, and he wasn't hurt in OTA. He wasn't hurt during all this time. And Broderick was going back and forth, and I'm like, your franchise left tackle is not your swing tackle. I'm like, the Steelers don't believe in him yet, because that's not who you have be your left tackle or your swing tackle. It's just not. Nobody's doing that. And then he was playing late in these games, in the preseason games, and I'm like, they don't believe in Broderick Jones. You never see that of actual starters playing late in the third quarter with the threes. I go, that's not something that they do. It's kind of with Justin Fields. That when Justin Fields in that preseason game, I'm like, he's in at the end of the game. I'm like, yeah, he's not going to be the starter. I go, I don't care what they're trying to tell us. There's no way he's going to be the starter playing at the end with guys that are going to be working at UPS in 2 weeks, man. I go, like, come on, man, we're not doing that. But I agree, Minkah. I've been hard on Minkah, and I get it that he's doing exactly what they asked, but there's got to be some kind of come to Jesus. You can't pay $18 million to a safety, and if that's all you're going to ask him to do, that just doesn't make any sense at all. And again, maybe he played bad, maybe he didn't. I think he's kind of doing what they're asking him to do, but maybe they should ask him to do a little bit more for $18 million. That's just me. Throw that out there. And that kind of brings me to the coaching changes. I mean, look, Rooney is very comfortable with Mike Tomlin. He's basically come out and said, I'm comfortable. We're not doing anything with it. I don't know, Jason, I think we got to get past it. There's a lot of fans that keep saying Tomlin's got to go. Tomlin's got to go. I'm like, he's not going anywhere.
No.
So it doesn't do any good to continuously talk about, well, he's got to leave. We're not going to do it. Hey, he's going to be here. So let's come up with a solution. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the conversation just it falls on deaf ears. I mean, it makes no sense. He's not going anywhere. The man's there. It is what it is. Whether I agree with what he does or not, or whether any of us agree with what he does or not, I mean, it is what it is. It's not going to change anything. I can't accept the mediocrity. I think at a professional level with sports, you need to be working toward a championship, and that should be the only thing that matters. And I just feel like they've lost that a little bit. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm reading into it too much. Nick, you may know more because you're around the team a little bit. I don't know how the players respond to him, but it just seems like there's something missing. And does it get stale after so many years? I don't know that answer, and I don't think really a lot of people do. But he's not going anywhere. It is what it is. The guy's there until he doesn't want to be anymore.
Yeah, listen, I mean, the defense falls on him. It
Yes.
does. I think that's the biggest thing this year is, listen, the offense, well, there are issues there. I don't think Arthur Smith is a particularly good offensive coordinator. So in my opinion, he probably missed on another offensive coordinator hire. This is like his third straight missed one. Like, that's something, right? That you're only as good as the people you hire. But people like blame Terrell Austin. I'm like, this isn't Terrell Austin's scheme.
No.
Terrell Austin comes from a aggressive, heavy blitz defense that plays cover 2. The Steelers play spot drop 3, man coverage, and don't blitz. Look at the numbers on the Steelers' defense this year, and you want to see how predictable they were. They were 30th in stunt rate. They were 28th in blitz rate. They were 32nd in disguise rate. So they don't blitz, they don't stunt, and they don't disguise coverages. They just line up and play. Not a way to win in the NFL nowadays, especially if you're playing spot drop cover 3. Teams are just going to dice that up. Patrick Mahomes is going to dice that up, certainly. And then even with you playing cover 3 and rolling the extra safety down to the box, you can't stop the run anyways.
Nope.
And so the Steelers, I think, came into this season thinking that defense was going to be so good that they could just line up and beat teams. I think it was a bit of arrogance from Mike Tomlin and the staff. And they started to kind of put things in later in the season. That's when you saw them to start busting coverages because they couldn't run it. So the install for these new looks weren't even going well. And then on the offensive side of the football, we're talking about You're talking about basically how many times did you see that darn toss play everybody knew was coming? I think a lot of them were checks by Russ, but at some point, how about you change the check just to another run? You have all these runs in your playbook. It doesn't always have to be that darn toss. Arthur Smith randomly giving 270 snaps to Michael Pruitt this season. The random 3 drives that Cordero Patterson would see every week. The lack of uses of Jalen Warren through 13 weeks of the season. The fact that Pat Frymouth didn't get involved until week 14, really, as a heavy hitter. George Pickens being your only receiver that was proven and not being the guy that gets the ball all the time. And when he does, it's just a moon ball. There's just so many different things. And the biggest thing for the coordinator personally on the offensive side that sticks out to me is the run game. This was supposed to be a running team that was dominant up front. And listen, they had Fautano got hurt, James Daniels got hurt, and that hurt them a lot. But when you actually look at that team and the scheme, they just were not running good. Like, they weren't fitting it. Najee Harris running outside zone. Why is he running outside zone? He's an inside zone gap runner. Meanwhile, Jalen Warren is running the gap stuff, and he's a good gap runner, but that's the guy that should be running the outside zone stuff. And so all these things just not fitting your scheme to your personnel. On the defensive side, being probably a little too arrogant about your personnel. The Steelers have great defensive personnel. That is a personnel, despite the corner issues and some defensive line deficiencies, that should be a top 5 defense.
Correct.
And it was not. And so all these things fall on coaching. And so Mike Tomlin and his assistants bear that burden. And they underachieved this year in that regard. This team did not show up the way it should have, and it did not meet their identity.
Absolutely. I think, too, Nick, what you were just saying, lacks direction and purpose on that offensive side of the football. How do you go down to the Senior Bowl and evaluate players when, I don't know, you feel like scheme, both offensively and defensively? I don't know if you have a direction. How do you go out there and draft people? How do you figure out what player fits your scheme the best? I just feel like there is no direction, no purpose in that locker room. It just makes it puzzling. It just seems like you're just out in limbo somewhere. It's just nuts, man.
The problem is, I think they have a direction and a purpose. I just don't think it's modern day football. I think that's part of the problem, is that it's not up to date or things that are going to work. It's kind of what Nick said. Hey, we're just lining up and beat everybody. Now, some of that's on the players, because there's reports that TJ Watt doesn't like playing anywhere but on the left side, doesn't like moving around. Well, I'm sorry, but Myles Garrett, I'm sure he likes to play one place too, but it helps everybody if you were to move around. Not to mention, we can get you on individual matchups where maybe you're not going against a really good tackle, or they're not able to chip you all the time and they're able to do some other stuff. A good question here that came up, Jake Russell said, I genuinely believe if we switch to a heavy 4-3 blitz with a lot of catch man, will solve half the defensive issues. The only thing that I would say, which is the same thing with the 3-4 defense, we got to have a nose tackle. And Keanu Benton, as much as I like Keanu Benton is playing at about 305 pounds. That means he's not a nose tackle. And that's part of the issue. We don't have a nose tackle. Now, maybe they'll get one in this draft. Maybe they won't. I think it's D-line has got to be a position that has to be addressed. We'll get to that a little bit later. But I think the defensive identity has to be, get back to stopping the run and get back to the stopping the run, but also get back to, you know what, we're not going to be as predictable. Nick, you hit it on the head talking about, well, we're just going to line up the arrogance. We're going to line up and beat everybody. Well, that doesn't work, because teams about midway through the year just figured it out. We'll put a tight end and chip TJ. We'll put a back on the other side and chip Alex. We'll double team Cam when we can. Your other guy can't beat our one-on-one block, and then where's the pass rush? And basically for about a 6-week period to end the season, the Steelers got 0 pass rush. Now, TJ was banged up. I'll give credit for that. I mean, it is what it is. But we got nothing out of anybody else. And since we didn't blitz, we're not going to blitz. They figured out how to block us. Now what do you do? And we couldn't do anything. And it was troubling, to say the least.
Not hard to figure out when you only got 3 to 4 rushing either. It's not hard to block that if you're an offense.
It's not. And listen, I'll also throw out a few other stats. Steelers faced the quickest time to throw in the NFL this year. So not only were they neutralizing the pass rush, they were getting the ball out as quick as they could and forcing the corners to tackle in space. They're forcing the linebackers to tackle in space. Patrick Queen was not good tackling in space this year. That was a big part of that. The corners were not great tackling in space this year. Dante Jackson's tackling fell off a cliff as the season went on. Minka Fitzpatrick's tackling late in the year fell off. And it was just a good formula. You could neutralize TJ Watt. You can neutralize Alex Highsmith. You can neutralize Cam Hayward and Keanu Benton. Steelers, in my opinion, I look at personnel all across the league on the defensive line. The Steelers have, at worst, the third best defensive line in football. They have such a deep group of pass rushers from the edge. They have Herbig and Preston Smith as their 3 and their 4. Even if you don't believe in Ogunjobi, he's still got juice as a pass rusher. Montravius Adams is your top backup. He can really rush the passer. From 3-tech, they got that. Like, they have personnel to rush the passer. The fact that they aren't getting pressure is schematic related. That is their issue. And so the Steelers can go out this free agency and they can go get a nose tackle. They can draft Kenneth Grant and they can sign DJ Reed and put him across from Joey Porter Jr. and they can get a slot corner and they can have this great personnel. If you line up in predictable schemes all day, teams are going to be able to dice that up. And even if you're able to stop teams, right? Even if you're able to stop the bad teams on your schedule, do you really think you're going into the playoffs and beating Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and these people that you're going to face? Probably not. And so the Steelers need to, I think one of the biggest things they can do defensively this year is for Mike Tomlin to just look in the mirror and say, okay, we got to get back to this. Because not all Mike Tomlin defenses have been predictable. They do similar things, but he has been a blitz-heavy defensive coordinator at times. He has been a guy that disguises blitzes and disguises coverages. And so I think no matter the talent next year, I think they're going to boost that at times. They need to get back to being a unpredictable defense. That is the biggest boost they can get. It's bigger than any defensive lineman. It's bigger than any corner they can get. Having a defensive schematic boost internally, I think, is the biggest thing they can do defensively. And what I would do to do that is bring in a senior defensive assistant, a veteran that's been around the league and bring in some fresh ideas. I think that would be nice for them.
They got to be willing to spend that money. The Steelers pay the least amount to the coaching staff in the league. I just don't understand that. I don't know, maybe penny pinching, whatever you want to call it. You're exactly right. Bring in some outside coaches. Bring in some analysts. Just the more the merrier. But as we know, Tomlin is control freak, and he wants to have his hands all over that defense. And when you do, you want to make sure that everything is going your way. And if everything's not going your way, you want to be able to call all the shots and have his, I call it putting his thumb, his hand, both hands, his feet, everything on the defense and be in charge of it all. And we got to get away from the basic 2000 football. Even in 2000, Steelers were unpredictable. Just get back to that and play real-time football. Just get back to that. And I think that is part of the problem here. I'm going to go to a quick super chat, and then we will move on. Our man Alonzo Dunn supports the channel all the time, says Casey Hampton style of player at all costs. I don't know that at all costs, but we definitely need a nose tackle. We absolutely got to have somebody to be able to just say, okay, you two guys, you can block me, but I'm not going to move. I get it. I 100% get it. We got to have that. But again, schematics of it all, if the schematics don't come along with it, it doesn't really matter. As far as offense is concerned, the biggest position as far as the deficit, I'm going to say it's the quarterback. The quarterback didn't play as great as what we wanted it to. But let me backtrack. I'd never want to put all the blame on everybody. You know, we do all 22 here every week, and there were plenty of times where the offensive line, who was awful, gave Russ time, didn't see him, didn't throw the ball. It goes back to what I've said a ton. Nick, you brought it up earlier. How is Pickens not your number one read on 95% of the passes that you throw? You drop back, he's looking all over the place, and then he comes back to Pickens late, but still doesn't throw him the ball. I'm like, what are we doing? That's the reason why I say quarterback, is because I know the line was bad. It was. I give that. But when you have time, Pickens has to be the number one guy. Force feed him the ball. Even when he's covered, how often have we seen George Pickens make catches when he's covered? Heck, Kenny Pickett made a career out of it, just throwing it in his area, and he came down with unbelievable catches where he had to be a contortionist just to catch a football. Give them an opportunity. They didn't do that. That's why I say, as far as quarterback on the offense was our biggest issue this year, regardless of the numbers. I'm not saying Russ is all to blame, but I think that was part of the problem.
Yeah.
It's hard to argue. It's hard to argue that quarterback was a big problem. Wide receiver was a huge problem too. It was. There was just no one that was open half the time. So basically, I think the issue with Russ, this year was the same stuff that was in Denver. Right? He runs into sacks, can't really throw it over the middle of the field. But I also thought, they signed Russ in a similar vein to when they drafted Kenny Pickett. And what I mean by that is these guys weren't meant to play hero ball. These guys were meant to have a run game. These guys were meant to have support, right? They weren't supposed to have to put on their capes. Russ had to put on his cape all year and try and make something work. He did for a little bit. I thought he bailed them out at times, to be quite honest with you, during that win streak. And then obviously, I think he just came back down to earth. I thought we started seeing Justin also come back down to earth before Russ got inserted. And I thought Justin was doing a lot of that early in the year too. So biggest deficiency with the offense, I mean, in terms of personnel, probably quarterback. In terms of what it might be, I think, I think coaching. I think coaching is poor. I think, you talk about not getting into George Pickens. Yeah, Russ needs to do that, but I also think Arthur Smith didn't dial up plays to get it to George Pickens. I don't think they moved George Pickens around the formation enough. They didn't dial up plays to get the Pat Freiermuth. Your four best playmakers on this team this year were clearly Pickens, Freiermuth, Warren, and Harris. And they misutilized all four of those guys significantly at times this season. And so I thought, even though they have deficiencies personnel-wise, they need more talent in this offense, period. They need more talent at receiver. They need more talent at quarterback. They're going to get into talent infusion, probably at running back, and maybe even on the offensive line again. But coaching, you have to put your guys in the best position. If you are supposed to be a team that runs the ball, you need to find out, how does my team run the ball best? The Steelers this year were best running the ball on gap schemes when guys were pulling, and they didn't run those a lot. They just kind of shoehorned the scheme that Arthur Smith has run since his days in Tennessee. And I think a lot of that was a big time issue for the Steelers. And so, quarterback, I think personnel-wise, but I think, coaching remains a huge issue for this team because you got people, running out here that maybe shouldn't be in this certain situation. You got Freiermuth not running on vertical plane, and he's instead running these different things. Everyone talks about, how Pat Freiermuth was overrated or something. He's a good tight end. Like, he's a legit top 12 tight end in this league. He took a step up as a blocker this year, if you watch the tape. But the issue is he was not utilized correctly, and that's coaching.
Yeah, I agree with that too, Nick. And you're coming out 12, 13 personnel, not even using the tight ends when you have them out there. You got a bunch of them out there, you don't even use them. And then just simply lacking creativity, lacking just being schematically sound. I mean, it was just bad, not utilizing the middle of the field. I felt like too, when you guys were talking about George Pickens a little bit, and Nick, you're in the stadium a lot and getting to see this, so you probably see this more than anybody. But I feel like he doesn't go 1,000% each and every play. And I think from a number one wide receiver, I think you need that. You need him to draw that attention. I think in the Kansas City game, I feel like that interception in the end zone was a perfectly placed ball by Russell Wilson. I just feel like George went halfway, and literally that safety jumped over and made that play. So I just feel like that he's not given that 1,000% effort. Is that because of lack of targets? I don't know, but I just feel like that's an issue too. When your number one guy isn't drawing that attention constantly that you need, maybe that's creating some of the other problems in a bad schematic offense.
Yeah, I mean, it's just there's a lot of things that have to get better in Pittsburgh on the offensive side. Starts with coaching, starts with O-line, quarterback, another wide receiver. The one position that is so dependent, running back, I thought running back was fine. They just didn't use them the right way, and then not to pick up Najee. Look, I'm not a big Najee fan, but it almost seemed like, Nick, I mean, that I don't want to say that they used him to not pay him, but it was almost like, look, we're not going to put you in the right scheme that best fits your needs so we can kind of justify. I'm never the conspiracy theory person because I'm not that guy. I've never been that guy. But it's like, look, you're not even giving him a chance to to thrive here because you know what works best with him. We saw when they made that change last year after they fired. I don't like to mention the previous offensive coordinator's name. We don't bring him up here, but they fired him. They made a change. They started running the ball inside more, and were successful. How often did we see that this year? It just didn't see. I'm like, look, you're trying to force this, Arthur Smith. Don't force it. Just run. Look, there's no Derrick Henrys back here. So don't run an offense like you have them. Do something different. You understand what you have. Just run it. And also the offensive line, that's how they block. They block better using a power gap scheme, not outside zone. It's just pretty much that simple. And it's weird because I actually think Broderick, he's so athletic, he should be outstanding at blocking zone schemes. He should just eat it for lunch, and he doesn't. And that's the problem. And let me just ask you this one quick question, Nick, and I'll move on. I know you said that they aren't going to move on from Broderick. He's going to be. Would it surprise you if they said, you know what? We don't want to live in this mistake. We made a mistake. We need to upgrade right now. And they took a tackle in the first round if he was there?
Yes, it would. I'd be stunned. I'd be absolutely floored.
If they just said, screw it,
yeah.
we're done with it.
No, I think that's a discussion for next year. There's no chance. I think they take a tackle again. I also am just not quite sure it'd be wise unless they have dropped a massive amount of money into like D tackle, wide receiver. I think I'd take a corner before a tackle in this class. But hey, if they do it, that speaks to something. That's for sure.
Right.
That speaks to a lot.
And that's my only thing is I'm like, yeah, I don't like we made a mistake, but I think a lot of times what teams get stuck in is, yeah, we made a mistake, but we're going to live in the mistake because we made it. And I think sometimes, you know what, just get out of it as soon as you can. They did it with Kenny Pickett. They got out of it when they can. But maybe this is different. Maybe they feel like they can fix Broderick. But we'll see. We will.
Broderick has a technique problem. He relied on his rookie year? Brute strength, just throwing everybody around, beating everybody up.
Yeah,
And
he's got a technique.
That wasn't his thing this year. He needed technique. Technique was not his thing. That was not his strong suit this year at all.
Technique and effort. That
Yes.
was Broderick's technique and effort, and just not knowing where to go. Just everybody wanted to give him the injury excuse at the beginning of the year, and I'm like, technique doesn't have anything to do with your injury, man. Your effort. It doesn't have anything to do with your injury. So it is what it is. Exactly. In free agency, Jason, we got to lock down somebody. Who do we have to get? One position that we got to get in free agency.
Oh, my opinion, we were touching on it. It's the wide receiver, no brainer to me, because I just felt like you lacked so much in that category. I just feel like you have to make a guy similar to a T. Higgins, somebody like that that's going to be available. You go out, you figure it out, you make a move, you figure out how to get it done, and spend a little bit of money in free agency. And I think the Steelers have to do that this season, be aggressive in free agency, and really help some of these position groups that need that help. But you got to go for a wide receiver. You need somebody. If you're going to keep George and you're not going to trade him off for anything, or he's going to be there, you got to give him some help too. And I think Calvin Austin, like Nick said, he was a good 3-4 type guy, but you need that true 1A guy. You need that other person that defenses have to pay attention to.
Nick, who do you got?
Wide receiver is definitely the answer. It's just, there's targets that. Do you love the targets at receiver? T. Higgins is obviously going to be the big guy.
Yeah.
Chris Godwin. I think you're going to have to settle for maybe an older player, an Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams if he's out there. I don't hate some of those options. I don't really hate Devontae Adams coming in. I think he's still a very good player. You could go even for a guy like Darius Slayton. I think there's some options there, but I'll give you another position I think that they should fix in free agency this year, just because the free agent crop is so good. I think corner is a spot they should really invest some money into. And I know people will be like, more money to the defense. Well, this corner group right now needs a little bit of infusion. They can't keep doing this Patrick Peterson, Levi Wallace, Dante Jackson type stuff, guys. They got to get somebody in there across from Joey. And I like Corey Trice. So I think, you don't want to completely freeze out Corey Trice. So my guess is what I would do is I would sign a slot. That's what I would do. I think When the Steelers defense plays at a really high level, they have guys in the slot that are able to kind of force teams to do different things. It also makes their change-ups, because Mike T loves doing that man coverage stuff on third downs and late downs when they can get after the pass rush. I really think that you look at a corner that can play in man-to-man as a
Yes.
big-time thing out of the slot.
Mhm.
And so, Cam Sutton couldn't do that. That's why they went to Cam Sutton, because they didn't trust Beanie Bishop in there. But
Right.
obviously, Cam Sutton was a disaster, and Beanie was better than him and should have been playing anyways. But I think, someone like Byron Murphy, DJ Reed, Asante Samuel Jr., there's a lot of names out there at corner. So I agree. Receiver is the one place they should absolutely put money into. They should absolutely sign a big-name receiver. I think they should sign 2 receivers. I really do. I think they should sign 2 of them. But I think corner is a really lush group, and I think they should add a corner. And that way, when you get to the NFL draft, you really don't have to focus much on corner at all.
Correct. Right. I totally agree. I'm going to get to this real quick. It's talking about Broderick cost us 3 or 4 touchdowns this year with penalties. He did. I agree with you guys. Corner, I think, is the one position that I think that's the first position that we have to attack is corner, because just what you said, Nick, then we don't have to necessarily address it in the draft. Go after a corner. There's plenty of guys out there. Wide receiver wise, I think we have to do that too. I like Darius Slayton. I wanted us to trade for him last year, and we didn't. But I think Darius Slayton would fit perfect. But the one position that I like, and I've been screaming this, is offensive guard. Go out and get a guard and say, okay, let's solidify the inside 3 guys. If we got shaky outside, at least one shaky outside position, let's try to solidify it. There's a few guards out there that we can get. Now, I don't know if we can get Trey Smith out of Kansas City, because the Chiefs usually figure out a way to keep their guys. But there's some other guards out there, unless we want to bring back James Daniels. Now, I know people are going to say, well, we got McCormick, but let's create some competition there, because let's be honest, McCormick wasn't ready to play this year. He just got forced into action. Well, let's create some competition. Siamala's on his last year of his deal. I would doubt the Steelers are going to re-sign him next year. That might even be somebody that the Steelers say, okay, are we going to trade him for draft capital this year? I don't think that they would, but they could. They could do that. I think spending money on an offensive guard makes sense, because they got to solidify the line. They can't do anything until that is solidified. So I like corner first. I like wide receiver for sure. But I think an offensive guard and trying to solidify the middle of the Steelers line makes a lot of sense, because the other teams around the league, the teams that are good, they have really good guards. And I just, you can't get past it. You can't get around it. You look around the league, especially the teams that have really good lines, they all have good guards. The Steelers have an opportunity to be able to do that and throw some money at that position. So
you got to have that line, man. You got to have that foundation. You got to have that foundational piece. And I think they found that in Zach Frazier. He's like that foundational offensive lineman that you had to have. So, yeah, that was
the thing about Zach Frazier. I think he was underappreciated in the draft. I'll use a nice word. I thought Zach Frazier was the best center in the draft last year.
I also did.
They kept talking about guys that didn't play draft more than one season at a time. And I thought, well, hold on a second. This guy's played for 3 years, been an absolute animal for 3 years, and he's not getting as much pub as some other guys. And it turned out that, hey, this guy's pretty good. So as far as our draft position, the biggest draft need, I'll go first. I think it's defensive line. I think the Steelers got to figure that out. People are going to say wide receiver. I think obviously that's the next, but I think D-line, I think that's something the Steelers got to attack, because we got to get younger. That's the thing. We got to get younger at the defensive line position. It's not just Cam, it's other people, because I don't expect the Steelers to have – and when I talk about D-line, I incorporate outside linebackers as too, because we're in the nickel so much. But I think we got to attack D-line. We got to be able to stop the run. We got to get a guy that can pass rush. There's no way that they keep Lario. I say no way. They could do it, but I don't think he's going to be back. Preston Smith, just by cutting Preston Smith, you save $13 million. So he's not coming back, not at that price. So I think D-line, for me, in the first 2 rounds, you got to address it.
I feel like you need to just simply best player available. That's the no-brainer for me. I think that philosophy is something that should always be followed. But I can't disagree about the D line depth, depth, depth. Add as much as you can there. But I really feel like they need to go after what we were talking about earlier: skill players. You've got to have skill players, and whichever skill players on that board that is the best available at the time they pick. I just feel like they got to go for it. And I feel like you just really got to add special talent around somebody, especially if you bring Justin Fields back. If you're going to give this guy a chance, give him every opportunity to succeed. Give him every weapon possible because you're not going to pay him some enormous salary, probably. So dump it into everything you can to get as many weapons as you can and give this guy a real shot and see what's the worst case scenario. If he doesn't do it, you're gearing up for 2026 to go after somebody else. Just make sure this guy got some weapons. Any skill player works for me.
Yeah, I approach this idea kind of this offseason as setting it up for the 2026 draft.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is you kind of should go into this offseason thinking whoever your quarterback is probably not your long-term answer. Maybe Justin is, and it's a pleasant surprise. And at that point, cool.
Right.
But what you should be setting up for is what appears to be a pretty good 2026 draft class. And you might actually have your chance to go up and get a guy. And that's what you need to do. So you're surrounding that guy to have as much talent. To do that, you got to fill these holes. I agree with both of you. I think receiver, D-line makes a ton of sense. I don't care the order of those. I will say I think receiver is way shallower than D-line. This is a generationally deep defensive line group.
Yep.
And I'm not sure even what type of D-line they would draft. I don't think they draft a nose in the first round. But I do think they could draft a Cam Hayward type in the first round. I think what they really should do is let's see where they're at receiver coming out of free agency. Have they signed T. Higgins? What happens with George Pickens? All these different things that you kind of have to answer. Let's see where they are. But those two positions to me are the clear weak points on a roster that is still trying to kind of get it up. I also think to me, one of the focuses I would have is a speedy running back. I would. You're letting Najee walk, which I think they're going to. I want speed in that offense. I want game-breaking running backs. I like that. We've seen the efficient teams that the Steelers really like to model themselves after. They model themselves after who? The Philadelphia Eagles and the Detroit Lions. Well, I'm not saying they need to get Jahmyr Gibbs or Saquon Barkley. I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think that they need somebody that can have a game-breaking element to their game. And there are a lot of speed backs in this class. And so you can easily go 1, 2, 3, just hit receiver, D-line, running back, or D-line, receiver, running back, something like that. They need that positional kind of versatility to kind of build this roster up around a quarterback for 2026. And so I think those will be the focuses. I do think corner is, again, a focus, but I would fix that in free agency. If they haven't, I think they have to look in the draft for that as well. But I do think D-line, personally, for me, would be my top focus just because I think you win in the NFL in the trenches. Every single team that made it this far has great D-lines and great O-lines. It is not a secret that they have this. They have great D-line, great O-line, but the Steelers need receivers, and I also would like a speedy running back, but I would say running back is lower than receiver and D-line for me personally.
Absolutely. Our man Alonzo Dunn says, how can you have Russ and not solidify the line? I would say, how could you have anybody and not solidify the line? It doesn't matter who's back at quarterback. Receiver, running back. I've done a couple of different mocks. Of course, this is way early, but that's the order. It's got to be the order. And again, either one as far as running back and D-line, whichever one you want to go with. Obviously, the draft, you never know who's going to be around. But there's definitely some D linemen that even if you wait, you can get somebody. If the Steelers don't make any trades or anything, that they can get a solid D lineman in the second round if they chose to do that. I think it's there. Here's my thing. What is a wild card move that the Steelers might make, Nick? Something that you're thinking, okay, we didn't believe that this would happen, but here it is. What's a wild card move they might make in this offseason, whether it's free agency or the draft?
It's an interesting question. Something that I do think is a little bit under talked about potentially. that you kind of already said was guard. I thought that was maybe one where they could make a move. Seumalo didn't have his best year either. He's 31. Last year was deal. McCormick, I think, again, he wasn't ready to play, but he did his best. I think he's a future starter. But all these things kind of come together and it says, could they go a guard? I mean, we have seen how much they have tried to reinforce the offensive line. They have. And so I think that's one that they could do. I'll say this. I think another wild card thing they could do is instead of signing a receiver, I think they could trade for one. I think this is going to be – there's always every year 2 or 3 or 4 wide receivers that are pretty good that end up on the market. Whether it's a DK Metcalf, a Cortland Sutton, a Garrett Wilson. These are just names that have kind of had rumors.
Sure.
You can kind of name anything, but I think that is probably the wild card move. Trading for a receiver instead of maybe drafting one or signing one, whatever. I think that one is the wild card move that maybe people won't see coming. That I think I could see the Steelers making.
What about you, Jason?
I agree. I would say receiver, a trade for a bigger name receiver or a young up and coming stud receiver. I would say that would probably be a wild card type move because they fell out. They didn't get that last year. They were in pursuit of that all off season, but they weren't able to get it done. But that would probably be the most wild card. But maybe a wild card a little bit is taking one of these mid-range quarterbacks, in the 3rd round or something like that, that kid out of Ohio State or something. Just taking one of those guys, letting them sit behind Justin Fields if they are able to get him, whoever that may be, and trying to build that way and seeing how things go. But I would say wide receiver trade's probably the most wild card thing that they could do. Offensive line, though, it's got to have some attention because you go nowhere unless you have the trenches secured. And that could be a big move also, either the defensive side or the offensive side, because you don't necessarily have to go and draft somebody. You can go out there and pick up in a trade or free agency.
Gotcha. So obviously 2025 is going to be here. We talk about it's January, but look, in the blink of an eye, the combine's going to be here. The draft's going to be here. Free agency is going to start. The season always seems to come a lot quicker. It always, to me anyway, the time that takes the longest is between the time from the last mini camp until training camp. That seems like it takes forever. But the time between now and then, it seems like it goes quickly. Having said all of that, what are any of our early season? Now, we don't know who's going to be on the team in 2025, but we have an idea what the Steelers may or may not do. Are we thinking the Steelers can do the same thing that they did this year? Or I guess a better question, Jason, is how frustrated would you be or happy if the Steelers did exactly the same thing as what they did this year? 9-8/10-7, get whipped in the first round of the playoffs.
I feel until you solidify the quarterback position and you make sure that your offensive line is developing properly and make sure the trenches in general are moving forward, I feel like you're just stuck in this area of what you're in. You're going to be, at best a 10, 11 win season. That's it. That's what you're stuck at. I don't expect much more from them. Now, depending on what they do, are they able to make some big moves? That changes things drastically. I don't know, but how does the quarterback position develop? How are they able to fix the wide receiver room? But as of right now, anything under Mike Tomlin seems to just be okay with being mediocre, and that's just the vibe I get and the way this seems to go.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Listen, I've talked about setting it up. I talked about kind of getting to that point for 2026. This feels like a year where they are kind of in limbo, right? They're trying to figure things out. Who's part of the future? What do they need to do for 26? Where everything goes. Obviously, they're going to try and crack that. But even if they add D-line, that young D-lineman, young defensive linemen are notoriously kind of slow for getting off the ground. Young running backs can be impactful, and so can receivers. So, they can be better than they were last year, but how can you not go into the season thinking they're not going to be 9-8, 10-7, and either slightly just miss the playoffs or losing the wild card again? I think that is the early season expectation. Guys, I'm serious. They could sign T. Higgins, they could draft Emeka Egbuka, they could fill D-line, they could fill corner, and I'd still predict them go 10-7 losing the wild card round. It just is what it is, right? And, a lot of these things, even if they boost personnel, we talk about coaching, that fix, all these things come together so they can be better. But how is the early expectation anything other than what we have seen?
Yeah. And be honest with you, I don't even know that it gets there for me because, again, we don't know who the quarterback's even going to be. We don't know about the offensive line. Now, you could go back and say, well, look at the history. They've done it with worse. And you're right. They have. But I think the league is different from the days of the Duck Hodges to today. I think the league is different now. I think that the schematics have taken a huge leap. Schematics seem to take huge leaps every 2 or 3 years. They seem to take huge leaps on offensive side, and then the defense takes a little bit to catch up. And then it takes another huge leap, and then the defense takes a little bit. We saw a little bit of that in 2023 when the offensive numbers from quarterbacks weren't outrageous. The defense had caught up a little bit, and also we saw, a little bit of an influx of refereeing, allowing a little bit more contact and things of that nature. So the quarterback numbers weren't ridiculous. This year, the quarterback numbers got back to being ridiculous because, again, schematics. So I would be surprised if they got back to where they were. I take that back. I wouldn't be surprised because I've seen it so many times, but I don't believe they're going to get there. Let me just say that. I just don't believe that that's going to be something that they're going to be able to do because I don't know that they're going to be able to fill all the holes. Like we talk about T. Higgins, and I'll ask both of you this question. First off, why would T. Higgins want to sign here? Now, granted, you pay somebody enough money, they'll go somewhere. But if he has his choice and the money's the same, why would you come to Pittsburgh, number one? Number two, how good is T. Higgins? Like, first of all, he's going to miss 6 games a year because he always gets hurt. We're paying this guy $31 million to miss 6 games. And two, how good is he without Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow? Do we know that? And, how good is he going to be here with whoever our quarterback's going to be? Don't get me wrong. I think T. Higgins is incredible. But those are two things that we just have not seen. So I'll ask both of you, what's the likelihood, or do you even want T. Higgins to sign in Pittsburgh? Would it be worth it?
Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I do think it would be. I think this is a true one. I think he's one of the game's best. You see his tape when he is asked to be a one. We've seen him without Jamar Chase for stretches, and he is still produced at a high level. So I think I don't really have questions about this. It's not the same thing about, Patrick Queen coming over from Baltimore when he was without Roquan, struggled. Every time T. Higgins is without Jamar Chase, this guy plays just as good. His numbers shoot up. So I think he's very, very good, and I think he's worth it. The answer why would come, you pay him a bag. I do also think no matter what, Mike Tomlin, even if you and I or whoever don't hold him in this ethereal light that the rest of the league does, the league holds him in that regard, and players love this dude. And so there's a draw to Mike Tomlin. And he does have that pull. It's undeniable. It doesn't matter what you think of him. He has it. It exists. When I'm at events like this at the Senior Bowl, I hear just adulation from everybody about this guy. So Mike Tomlin's like a legend in the NFL. And so that's, he has legit recruiting power. He has the ability to recruit players like that. And so, T. Higgins, I think, is going to have options. He's going to, New England's probably going to drop a bag at him. I'm sure Cincinnati's going to try and get him back. I don't particularly view it as very likely he's going to be in Pittsburgh because of all these factors we're talking about, but there are reasons why he would sign in Pittsburgh, and those are just a few of them. And listen, they pay him the most money. Sure, he'll come. It doesn't really matter. I don't think it's gonna hurt too much.
Correct.
I feel the same way. Mike Tomlin still has the draw, man. You can't deny that. Yeah, I don't agree with him in a ton of different areas. I think he lacks in many areas, but people are going to flock to him. That's just the way it is. But again, you pay somebody big bucks, they're coming, man. But maybe T just likes the fact of maybe playing with a young guy like Justin Fields. Maybe he likes that athleticism. I don't know, but I feel like T would have reasons to come, but I feel like it's highly unlikely. I think the Steelers' best route is just to go out there and find as many good, solid guys. I don't think necessarily you have to have a superstar, but you need guys that can contribute and just show up in the big moments. I don't think you need somebody that has monster statistics constantly. You just need to find a group of guys that come work their ass off and just show up every time, and they
Right.
don't disappear, you know? Health bothers me. Health does bother me with T. But man, if you get him, it'd be something special, I believe. But yeah,
Right.
he has reasons to come.
Sure. And that's kind of what Alicia Greg say. He's got an injury history. Hope he's not another Godwin. I mean, I know we talk about Godwin being hurt. If I was the Steelers, I would take Chris Godwin in a heartbeat right this very second. I don't care about his injury history. I would take him in an absolute heartbeat if he decided to come to Pittsburgh. So before I get you guys out of here, man, I'm going to have one just wild, crazy take about next season. What is, and to make it easier, I'll go first. Steelers fall off a cliff, 5-12, picking in the top 10 next season. Doesn't seem like it's that far off, but how many times have we thought the Steelers were going to stink, or people outside thought the Steelers were going to stink? I'll just say it's a wild take because I don't think this is going to happen. But they fall off a cliff, 5-12, picking in the top 10. Jason, you go next.
My wild take is maybe the Steelers do something that actually makes sense and they start to change a little bit. They start to adjust a little bit and they show, some progression. And maybe you do get a guy like Justin Fields back and maybe he does blossom into something that many people thought he would when he entered the league. Maybe that happens and maybe the Steelers take off and Mike Tomlin finally, after 18 years, restarts this engine and gets these things moving back in a Super Bowl competitive type way, not just 10 wins or 9 wins or whatever. But that would be my wild take. Maybe they do just all of a sudden put things together. Maybe the offensive line all of a sudden starts to gel, because that could be a possibility. They're young and it takes a couple years. Maybe they do get it together and things take off. That would be my wild take.
Gotcha.
All right, here's my wild take. I'm going to go a little less overview and just talk about one player. Troy Fautano in his first year is a Pro Bowler, is my take. And not just an alternate Pro Bowler, a legit top tackle in the AFC that makes it on merit. I think Troy Fautano, when they picked him, I was so high on him. He moves like Oz I have never seen at the tackle position. He's a perfect schematic fit for them. And his tape against the Broncos, he was facing Nick Benito and Jonathan Cooper. Both guys had really good seasons in Denver. Was really good.
Yep.
Really good. And it was his first career start. I think this guy, I'll sell the moon to him. I really think that he is a stud. And so my bold take is right away, Troy Fautano comes in, and you see why he was their pick at 20th overall. You're going to understand why they picked Troy Fautano. I'm sky high on Troy Fautano. So my prediction is he's a Pro Bowler next year. And I wanted just to kind of put it there. If you want a wild take overall, 10-7, losing the wild card round to Josh Allen.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Fautano here, look, Tomlin doesn't give you a ton all the time, but when he came out and basically said, yeah, the reason he jumped in the starting lineup is because he's been a man at practice, you probably knew something. The guy's coming off of preseason, he gets hurt, and then all of a sudden he comes back and immediately goes into the starting lineup. I'm like, first of all, either they really don't like Broderick or this guy's really good. You saw him play against the Broncos. Two things can be true. That maybe they didn't like Broderick, but I just saw him against the Broncos, and he was cleaning house. Just absolutely cleaning house. I love that take. I like him. People said he had the injury history, and he does. I'm not saying that he doesn't. Got to stay healthy. But if he plays, I think we found us one. So, well, number one, I want to thank both of you guys for taking the time out of your day and joining us here. I know you guys have busy schedules, so I appreciate it. Nick, tell everybody where they can find you and all the stuff that you do, my man.
Yeah, guys, you can follow me on Twitter at Farabaugh FB. Got stuff all over there all the time. And make sure to read stuff over at PennLive.com. I got coverage, everything, and also a YouTube channel if you're liking YouTube. Steelers on Penn Live. I have podcasts over there. And I have little stand-ups that I do after reporting live from places. So I try to give you guys the inside scoop as much as I can.
Appreciate it. Jason, where can everybody find you at, my man?
Just on YouTube, Mike Drop Sports. We started a Facebook page. We have a Twitter also, both at Mike Drop Sports. So yeah, come over, check us out. We do live shows every single day. Yeah, daily uploads, pre-recorded stuff. So yeah, just having a conversation, man.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, everybody. Remember, memberships are up and going here on Steelers Almighty. We appreciate everybody for joining us today, man. This was really fun. Hopefully we have these guys back in the future. Until then, we will talk to you guys soon, man. Aloha.